What's up, Notjust developers? Welcome back to a new project-based tutorial. My name is Vadim, and today we're gonna build together the iOS 18 photo application. So, Apple, in the newest version of iOS, in the 18, which is still in beta, they have done quite a huge update on the UI for the Photos application. Here we can see it, and it starts with a nice header at the top that we can scroll through. And the first page here we see like our images, but then we see other like favorite images or other featured images, and later we can even customize it. What's cool about the application is still actually buggy, so I'm gonna have to relaunch it. What's cool about this page, like the front page, is that we can scroll through this page, and here we will see like other memories, trips, and so on. And if you have like photos, they would usually be displayed as this horizontal carousel. We're gonna do that as well. But the cool thing, and actually the most challenging part of today's tutorial that I spent like days implementing, is the ability to go from this mode into scrolling down into the mode of the flat list of a library. So if we scroll down, we are in the library, we can scroll through the photos, and if we scroll up again, we're gonna get into the main type of scrolling that you can see here. So these are everything that you see here, we're gonna implement today in this tutorial. This is going to be done in React Native. We're gonna work a lot with scroll views. We're gonna work a lot with flat lists to display the images. We're gonna work a lot with carousels or horizontal scroll views, as you can see here or later here. And the challenge is going to be to put everything together, because as you can see, we have a scroll view inside a scroll view, inside a flat list, and so on. Moreover, we're gonna focus a lot today on animations, so we're gonna practice using React Native Reanimated and React Native Gesture Handler to create gesture-based animation, as you can see here, by dragging down, going from one page to another. So this is the plan. Here is a short demo of the application that I've prepared. This is very rough. We're gonna try to do it even better today. And here we can see that at the top, we can go for different images. We can scroll down and it will zoom in. And when we are in this mode, we can scroll the page. And if we're on the top, we can, where is it? If we're on the top, we can scroll down to get into this mode. And now we are interacting with a normal flat list. We can press on one image here. It actually also supports pinch to zoom like this, and swipe down to go back. And yeah, this is everything that we're gonna do today. If you're ready, I think it's time to get started. Hello everyone that is joining us live. How are you doing, guys? Where are you joining us from today? Let me put this one here. I'm going to stop my previous server. And we can go ahead and open a terminal to create a new React Native project using Expo. So let me zoom in a bit. Here we go. Let's go into CD projects, YouTube, and here I'm gonna create a new directory. Once you navigate to the directory where you keep your projects, let's go ahead and initialize a new Expo project using npx create expo. Come on, app. At latest, to take the latest version, let's give it a name. The name is going to be iOS Photos. And let's also choose a template which is going to be equal to TypeScript or blank TypeScript. How is it called? Let me template blank TypeScript. So iOS photos template blank TypeScript. This is a template. Unknown. Oh, template. Yeah, I have a type of error like this with an E. So the blank TypeScript is going to be a blank project without a lot of dependencies, because I want to help you set up these dependencies like gesture handler, reanimated, and others that we will need together. And TypeScript, because it's going to help us. I don't think we need a lot of TypeScript today, but anyway. Hello Joe, hello Byral, Aristeo, Hanya, Vikrant, hello, Arthur, Bro Code, hello from India, hello. And animations, yes, the tutorial is going to be focused a lot on animations. I have a project set up. Let's go ahead and open it in Visual Studio Code using code and the name of the folder. I don't need the terminal anymore, because right in the VS Code, we're going to open a terminal with a shortcut, or from the top terminal, new terminal. And here, let's go ahead and do npm start. This will start our Metro bundler, or the development server, from where we can run our application on different devices. As I always say, the easiest way to run this application on a device is going to be by downloading Expo Go application on your physical device from App Store or Play Store. It's available both on iOS and Android, and then scanning this QR code. If you have an Android or iOS simulator which needs Android Studio or and Xcode, in that case you can also press A or I to open on the emulators. So I'm gonna press I to run it here on my iOS simulator so that you can see it as well. I'm gonna press R to reload it. And here we should have, yes, here we have our blank application. It just says open up.tsx to start working on your application. Let's do just that. App.tsx is currently the entry point in our application. And if we go here and update this text that we render to hello world and then save, we should see that our application hot reloading and showing us the updates that we're doing in our editor. If that's good, if that's true, then you're all set up and we can continue working and building our application. Let me go ahead and I will try to keep commits at every step so that you can later follow them and see what I've been doing. Let's do init. And here we have. Rogelio, hello, how are you doing, brother? Hania from Morocco. I've been to Morocco, I've been to Casablanca. Very beautiful. I'm from Turkey. Hello, Ayp Dogan. I just saw the... Oh. Undo, sorry. That was by mistake. Dogan, sorry, I deleted your message by mistake. I didn't intend to do that. Jakob, hello, how are you doing? Lean Garage. My Cloud VIP from Chicago, hello. Okay guys, so what are we going to do first from our iOS photo application? If I'm gonna switch to our iOS photos, I think that the first step that I want to cover is displaying these pictures in a flat list. in a grid displaying squared images. So let's start by doing that. For this we need some images, and I have prepared for you a list of images and some dummy data that will help you build this application easier and have some real data. So go ahead in the description of this video where you see asset bundle link, go ahead and download that asset bundle, and you should see, where is it, in the content assets, you should see two files. First of all, there is data.ts. Let's go ahead and move it in the root folder like this, so it's besides app.tsx. Now let's go ahead and open the assets folder in our project and drag and drop the photos directory inside our assets. Now we have assets photos with 50 different photos, and data.ts, which contains an array of data that is referencing to our images there. So this data just has an ID and the image that we import. Make sure to add these files in the right place, because here we are using relative paths, so if you put them in the different folders, it might not work correctly. Now we can go ahead in our app.tsx and first of all import our photos from data file, from .data, from this array. And these photos is an array of items. Let's go ahead and open it here first. So if we want to render an image, we're going to use the image component from React Native. I'm going to import image from React Native, and instead of hello world, let's render image. And for the source, let's give there the photos at position 0, basically the first photo in that array, dot image, because it has an ID and an image. And just like that, we see a photo on the screen. But if you would like to have more photos on the screen, you wouldn't like to copy paste it and do like 1, 2, and so on. Instead, what we can do is use a FlatList component from React Native that helps us map through an array of data and for every single item render something, basically rendering lists of data. So instead of rendering this image, which I'm going to add some enters at the top, new lines at the top, let's render a flat list, and the flat list has two required properties. The first one is data, which expects an array of items. In our case, it's our photos. And the second property is render item. This render item expects us to define a function that the flat list will call for every single item in that array, and we should tell what should be rendered on the screen for every single photo. Well, we should render an image like this. And just like that, we have a list of images. We're gonna figure out the styles in a moment, but the problem is that every single image is the same. As you can see, they are all rendered the same. Because when we render, we are accessing the first photo always. Instead of that, we should take it from these parameters as item, and the item is going to be the value of one of these items that FlatList is currently rendering. So from top to the second, third, and so on. So instead of taking photos at position 0, we're going to take item, which is one image, one photo, and from there we're going to take the image. Now all the images are different. Perfect. I'm going to remove from the styles container these two properties, align item center and justify content center. Okay, now it's a bit better. Before I manage with the styles and so on, yeah, let's go ahead in this image and say, let's style it with, I don't know, a width 100 and height 100. This will make them square and 100 pixels wide. In the Photos application, we see that we are displaying these images in actually 5 columns. To do that, we can also display items in multiple columns with a FlatList by specifying the num columns, and let's specify 5 here. If I reload, just like that, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and the fifth is not fitting because width 100 is too much, so maybe we should do 75, and now it's going to fit. But instead of doing 75 here, what we should actually do is work with, for example, a flex 1, and in this case we're saying images on the same line should share the space. Basically all of them should take 1 unit of space. And instead of saying height 100, to make the image square, we can work with the aspect ratio and say that the aspect ratio should be 1, which will make it how's it called? A square. Okay, everything works fine so far. Maybe I will start with 4 columns, and I need to press R in my terminal because changing the number of columns is not supported on the fly. And everything works fine, but the problem is with the last row. As we can see, because the last row has only 2 items, by specifying flex 1 here, they will share the space, and that makes them larger than the items on the rows with 4 items. If we want to keep the same sizes, instead of using a flex here, we can work with a flex basis. And here, if you say that the flex basis should be, I don't know, 25%, and instead of removing flex 1 from here, we're gonna see that it shares this space equally because we have 4 columns, flex basis 25. If you have 5 columns, you're gonna need flex basis. Where is it? Come on. Flex basis 20 to make sure that you have space for that. Or, in other words, you can say 100 divided by the number of columns that you have. In our case, it's 5. And if I change this to 4, I'll have to change this flex basis to 4. They all share equal amount of space, and the last row is, the items on the last row are the same size as the previous ones. Okay, perfect. Now I want to add some white spacing between the items, right? Between the photos. To do that, we can work with a gap property. So on the container style, if I'm gonna add a gap 1, we're gonna see, or maybe a gap 4 to see it better, we're gonna see that we have added a gap between the horizontal lines. To add it between the items as well, there is another style that the FlatList applies, and that style is the column wrapper style. This is another container with another style that we can apply the same gap, and it will add the space between the items. And if I will reduce it to 1, I think I will have a desired outcome. Is it 1 or maybe 2 pixels? Yeah, let's go with 2. Okay, I think that's better. Okay, that's good. How do you solve a problem? We need to display the application, a point on the center. Sergio, do you mean like for a camera, you need to detect the nose of a person and you want to render a dot on that person? FlatList or FlashList for displaying the photos. I'm using FlatList. Maybe by the end of the tutorial we are going to move to FlashList if we have time. Let me actually note it down. And we can even compare some performances. Come on, FlashList. Let's read the documentation for flex basis. So the flex basis, based on the definition, is an axis-independent way of providing the default size of an item along the main axis. Setting the flex basis of a child is similar to setting the width of that child if its parent is a container with a row, or the height of a child if the parent container is column. The flex basis of an item is the default size of that item. The size of the item before any flex row and flex shrink calculated are performed. So yeah, in this situation, because we are rendering the items in the same row, flex basis is very similar to the width property. So I can even replace it with width. But a flex basis is the dimension on the main axis. So in this scenario, it's similar to width, but if we have columns, not rows, in that case, it's equal to the height. So I think for simplicity purpose, width is going to make more sense in this scenario. Width makes sense, yeah. Okay, so let me do what? Let me go ahead and do a git add, git commit -m, flat list of images. Sergio, that's a very good question. Sergio is saying, I want to create a simple verification of a person step in my application. The user needs to point their nose at randomly spotted dots on the screen to confirm that they are a human and not a bot. I think you would use a face, yeah, like vision camera with frame processing and detect a face, and instead of finding the nose, a simple way is just to have a rectangle of a face and just find the middle dot and draw a dot in the middle of the person's face. For some people, you're gonna be on the nose. For others, like it's just going to be simply in the middle, and then they will still like be able to move their head around to pick up for the dots on the screen. So the goal, like the problem, come on, Vadim. In other words, the problem is simply finding the face, drawing a square, finding the middle of that square, and then it's much easier because you don't have to actually find the nose. Okay. What's going to be our next step? Our next step I think it's going to be having below the flat list, having other items on the screen. So let's go ahead and maybe below the flat list, let's go ahead and add here, let's say a view, which is a simple container with a text, which is going to be the title. Let's say this is albums. And for now, I'm going to simply add another view with a style, let's say height 200 with 300 and background color light gray. And as you can see, we see that square there. If I'm gonna add another container like this below, we're gonna see them there, but we are not able to scroll through the whole page. In order to be able to scroll through the whole page, because if we're gonna have a lot of these albums and sections below, in order to be able to scroll, we need to make the parent of these components scrollable. So a scrollable component is called a ScrollView, imported from React Native, and a flat list is actually extending a ScrollView. So let's go ahead and render a ScrollView here, and just like that, we're gonna see that we can scroll through the flat list, and we can scroll through all the way till the bottom where we see the different sections here. The problem is going to be that if I reload, we're gonna see a warning. Virtualized list should never be nested inside plain scroll views with the same orientations, because it can break windowing and other functionalities. What does that mean? That means that we have a vertical scroll view, and inside that we have a flat list, which is also vertical. And this means that some functionalities is going to be broken. We cannot have different scrollable components inside each other that have the same direction. So for that reason, for a moment, I'm going to go ahead and disable the scrolling of a flat list for now. Later on, we're gonna enable it back, but we're gonna enable it conditionally. So now if I reload, I don't have that warning anymore because my flat list is not scrollable. My root scroll view is the one who is handling the scrolling at the moment. Okay. Now I want my flat list initially to be only half of the screen. But as you can see, the flat list is going to be part of a whole header, right? So let's go ahead and put the flat list inside a view that later will become the header. So the view begins above the flat list and ends just below the flat list. This, I'm gonna add a comment, header. Now, what I want to do with this header is say that the style of this header should be half of the screen. I don't know, height 50%? Will that work? Maybe if I do height 200, yes, height 200 works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the height of a screen using a hook called use dimensions, use window dimensions imported from React Native. With these window dimensions, we can get the height and the width of our screen, and I can say that the height of the header should be height divided by 2, so it should be half of the screen. Another thing that I forgot about this FlatList is I want to invert it. I want the newest item to be on the bottom and for us to scroll up instead of the other way around. So by simply sending to the FlatList inverted, we're gonna see that the first photo that in the data is ID 1, image 1, and image 1 is this photo. The first photo starts here on the left. Actually, I was expecting it to start on the right, but it starts like from left to right, but from the bottom. Yeah, actually, I would expect it to start from right to left when it's inverted. Do we have another inverted column? Nope, it doesn't. But anyway, it's still inverted. It's still, if we're going to enable the scroll view back, we're gonna be able to scroll from bottom to the top, like this. Okay. What next? Now we have a bit of the shape of our page. Let's go ahead and work a bit on our carousel here, like these containers. If we look here, most of them will have a title and they will be some kind of a carousel. Some of them will be smaller as here, some of them will be a little bit bigger, but basically all of them will be some kind of carousels. So let's go ahead and create another component, a custom carousel component. I'm gonna do that in the root directory because we're not gonna have a lot of components, so I'll keep them simple. Let's do custom or carousel, carousel.tsx. From here, I'm going to export a default function called carousel that initially will render a view, and inside that view, a text that is going to be the title. Let's say title. Let's make sure to import view and text from React Native. And then this exported carousel, let's import it in app.tsx, import carousel, and render it instead of these items. So let's remove everything here below our header and render a couple of carousel items. This one, this one, this one, and that's it. Now if I go back to my application, we should see 3 title, title, title. Let's go ahead and besides the title, what will we have there? We're going to have some images. Some images that we're gonna put in a scroll view to have it as a horizontal scrollable carousel. We can use a scroll view from React Native, and here we can render a couple of images also from React Native. Let's import them here. And the images, for example, needs a source. Let's import some dummy data from photos. And let's say that this is going to be photos at position 0.image. And let's add one more, or maybe 2 more. I'm gonna give them some style. And the style is going to be width 300 and height 200. Okay, all of them needs the same style. Now they are all displayed on top of each other. I wanted to make this scroll view horizontal, so I'm just gonna pass here the horizontal property. Now I can scroll through them. Maybe I should display different images here. Okay, that's good. Now we have something there. Let's go ahead and add some styles. I'm gonna properly style it using a style sheet that we're gonna create below the component. Styles equal style sheet.create. And there are going to be three main styles that we need. We need the container style that has the whole carousel. We need the title styles. We're gonna need the images, which is going to be the container, the scroll view, and maybe the image as well. The styles of one image, we have them here, so maybe I can copy paste them right here as an object. Come on. And I will have to pass it to the image as styles.image for all three of them. Now the styles, let's apply them to the container, to the root view styles.container, to the title styles.title, and to this scroll view as content container style. Let's apply the images, styles.images. Now, starting with the container, I want to add some padding 10. But in fact, I'm not gonna add it on the container itself because I want the scrollable things to be from side to side. Because as you can see, if I add here 30 or even 50, the scrolling part is going to be not going till the end. What I want is these collections, as you can see, to go till the edge of a screen. So my padding is not going to be on the whole container, but on the rather on the title itself. So let's add padding 10 on the title. And maybe the container is going to have some margin vertical 10 so that it can be separated better. For the title, let's go ahead and make font size 5 or 600. Font weight, I wanted font weight. And font size 30, something like that. 30 maybe is enough. 24. And what about the color? I don't really like a color. What's different there? It's not that. Maybe it's 20. Probably something like that. As they have even larger padding, maybe 20, maybe 15. Yeah, something like that. And for the images container, I want to add some gap there, also around 15, so that we have spaces between the different items. I would even do more, probably 20 is going to be good. And should I add a padding 20 as well, maybe padding horizontal, so that it doesn't start from the edge, but it can go there. Perfect. Another thing that I can do is on the image, to make it more beautiful, I will do border radius 20, like this. The height, yep, something like this probably. Now if we are smaller, the gap might be 15. And if you want to get rid of the indicator here on the scroll indicator on the bottom, you can do that on the scroll view itself with a property shows horizontal scroll indicator false. And now it's not going to show this horizontal scroll indicator. Okay, so the last thing about this carousel to make it more reusable would be to, first of all, pass the title as a property. So if I go back in the app.tsx and here pass different titles, for example, this one is going to be albums, then this one is going to be people, then this one is going to be featured, or recent, or deleted, or pets, or any other title, then this property on the carousel, if we receive it as title, we can replace our hard-coded title with curly brackets, and inside there the title property that we received here. So just like that, we have albums, people, and featured, what we sent from there. We can also define the types. This is optional, but we can define type carousel. It can have the same name. And we can say that the title property is going to be a string. Now we take this carousel type and we say that this object, which is the properties, by putting double dots, we say that this object is of carousel type, which means that it will have a title string. And because we provided the type here in app.tsx, if we forgot to give a title, TypeScript is going to let us know that, hey, title is missing. We need to provide it. And that's our carousel, and probably we will also want to send like some photos there. So let's say photos is going to be an array of photos, but we don't have a type of one photo. Let's do array of any. And then we're gonna take these photos here and do what? Photos.0image, photos.1, photos.2. And if we go ahead in the app.tsx and send here photos as an array of photos 0, I can do it like this, look. Photos.splice, which is going to be what? No, photos.slice. Returns a copy of a section of an array by providing start and end. So I'm gonna slice them from 0 to 3 here. For the second carousel, I'm gonna slice them from 3 to what, 6, I guess, and then from 6 to 9. And now all the carousels have different photos, as we can see here. The problem is that if I provide here less photos, for example 2 of them, it's going to fail because in our carousel we are relying on receiving 3 different photos, 0, 1, and 2. If we want to render all the photos that we receive, and no matter how many we receive, what we should do is we should here loop through photos.map, and for every photo, let's go ahead and render one of these images. So for every photo, we're gonna render the image. So I'm gonna delete the rest, and here I'm going to access the photo.image. And just like that, if we just send 2 pictures, it's going to render 2 of them. If we send 3 of them, it's going to render 3 of them, and so on and so forth. We can even send here more, like 4, under the feature. So this is it. Only one warning to be fixed is whenever the warning is this: each child in a list should have a unique key. That's coming from us mapping over our photos and rendering a list of images based on an array. When we do that, every item here must have a unique key. The key, we can probably do photo.id because we know that we have ID. And this is used by React to optimize and memorize a long list of images by their key. Now, if I'm going to reload my application, we are not going to see this error because the images in this list, they all have unique key that we provided as the ID. Okay. Let's drink some water, stay hydrated, guys. And our carousel, actually, is not yet ready. One more thing that I want to do. What I also want to do on this carousel is to enable the snapping. As you can see, as I scroll, the list always snaps for the item to be aligned with the title. Even if I leave it like this, it's going to go back, or if I do more, it's going to always align here on the start. To do that, what we are going to do is for the scroll view is tell it that we want the scroll view is to snap. Snapping, we can try snap to start because we want to snap at the start of a list. So now I don't think it's going to work because we should also provide the interval at where to snap. Like basically different points where the list should snap. So snap interval, as we can see from the documentation, is when set, causes the scroll view to stop at multiples of the value of snap interval. So if we provide here 300, our scroll view is going to stop at 0, at 300, at 600, at 900, and so on, at multiples of this value. And if I'm gonna try to go here, maybe I will go to the last one. Why it doesn't snap? Snap to interval 100. We're not snapping. And maybe I also need the deceleration rate. This is how fast do we want the items to move to the snapped position. Yes, now it works. Does it mean that without a deceleration rate, it doesn't work? Let me just try this. Okay, it snaps even here. So probably sometimes it works, sometimes it... But anyway, I need this deceleration rate, which specifies how fast do we want the snapping to happen. And it kind of works, but it doesn't align to the center. That's because this snap to interval should be equal to the width of our image. And the width of our image is 215, but that's not enough. If I add 250, I mean, in that case, it's probably, let me in the app.tsx provide more items here. It's going to kind of work, like not until the end. And the more we scroll, it's offsetting. That's because besides the width of the image, we also have a 15 gap. So we should take into consideration this gap as well. So I'm gonna do 250 plus 15 of a gap. And now if I reload and snap, as we can see, it snaps right here. If I snap again, it snaps right here. And no matter how many items, it's always going to snap here. Except the last one, because it cannot snap there. And if I go back, it still works. And just like that, you have a carousel that also snaps to the alignment based on different intervals, which are taken from the width of your items. Okay, and now I think we are good with this carousel. Let me go ahead and do git add, git commit carousel. And here we have them. Okie dokie. I'm gonna clean it up a bit like this. Yeah, I think it works nice. Now back in our app.tsx, what's gonna be our next step? What's gonna be our next step? The same way as we have carousels here on the bottom, one of the most interesting features on this page is actually the top carousel. Like at the top we see the library, but this is actually a carousel. So that goes through different pages showing like favorites, showing albums, showing highlights and so on. And you can also customize it with different feature photos and so on, which we're not going to implement, but the carousel itself I think we will implement because it's quite cool to do. So let's go ahead and implement this top carousel, like the header carousel. This is going to be in our app.tsx, and the header currently is a view that has a flat list. What if instead of a view, we're going to apply the same logic as we did to the carousel? We have a scroll view with horizontal that will also snap to alignment, and then the items is going to be, the first one is going to be a flat list, then is going to be another image with some title and so on. Let's try to do that, and let's start by changing from a view to a scroll view. What's that gonna do? But the scroll view should be horizontal. Okay, that's good. but what happened there is that the flat list now became very wide because the scroll view does not have a width, right? So how are we going to fix that? Yeah, I think that the way we're gonna fix that is going to be to apply to the flat list. If we do style here and say that the width should be 200 or like 200, yeah, that works. But instead of 200, we know the width of the screen. So we can say that the width of the flat list should be equal to the width of the screen. And because they have the same name, we can use the shortcut like this. And now, yeah, the flat list is properly aligned. If we add some other things after the flat list, for example, an image with a source, photos, where is it? Source, photos at position 0, dot image. Then we're gonna be able to scroll, and here we're gonna have a photo, which is again too large, so we can do style and say that the width of the photo should be the width of the screen. And the aspect ratio should be, I don't know, let's try 1. We can even do for this image resize mode cover to make sure that the image covers the whole area. But in that case, I don't need aspect ratio, right? No. Height is height over 2. So maybe I should do height 100% to take full height of my parent scroll view. Yes, and now the image is full screen, and because we have resize mode cover, which probably is the default resize mode, it covers the whole area there. So now we have a carousel where the first item in that carousel is a flat list, the second one is an image that we can even duplicate to have like more items there. First one and the second one, I'm gonna change just the image, the ID of the image, maybe 10. Good. Yep, here it is. Okay, now let's also make this scroll view snappable, to snap at different intervals, not to be able to scroll like freely. To do that, we remember that we need to do snap to interval and specify the interval at which we want to snap. In this case, it's very easy because the width of every item is the width of the screen. So we can say that snap at increments of the width of the screen. So if the width of the screen is 300, snap to 300, then to 600, 800, and so on. Now, if I reload, will it work out of the box? No, because we also need to do snap to alignment, and we need to say start at the start of this 300. And also that deceleration rate fast. Now if I reload and do like this, it snaps to alignment properly. Nice. This scroll view, I don't want the indicator to be at the bottom. So I'm gonna do shows horizontal indicator false. Now it disappeared, but we would like to show somehow on which page we currently are. Before I do that, let me go ahead and do a git add, git commit -m, header carousel, like this. And the next step on this carousel that I want to do is to add this indicator that we can show like which item we are currently showing. That's probably going to need some styling, some animations. Not sure if we're gonna do like exactly like that, but let's start with some dots. And the dots that we're gonna render are going to be just below the scroll view, the header scroll view. So just below the scroll view, let's start by rendering a view with 3 dots, because we have 3 pages there. The first one, the second one, and the FlatList. So instead of rendering like 3 views like this, or maybe I will start by rendering 3 views like this, let's start with 1 dot. It's going to have like width 10, height or aspect ratio 1 to have it as a circle, background color gray. That's good. I see it already there. For the parent, I'm gonna add there some padding 10, and I'm gonna align the items in the center. If I make this round by doing border radius 5, it's going to be round. And if I duplicate this view one more time, it's going to be one on top of each other. So for the parent container, I'm going to do justify content, not justify content, but flex direction to put them in the same row. Flex direction row, that will put in the same row. And here, instead of align items, I need justify content center when we have the direction row. And to add spacing between them, we can do a gap 5 that adds the spacing. Now, oh, sorry. Now, instead of duplicating them, what I want to do is I want to dynamically loop through an array. So let's go ahead and add here the brackets where we can write some JavaScript. Firstly, I need to create an array of 3 items because I know that I have 3 pages: FlatList, images, and the image and image. 3 pages in this header scroll view. That's what I mean. So to create an array of 3 items, I'm going to do array of length 3, and I will fill them with 0. Because if I don't fill them, they will be undefined. Then I'm going to simply map through this array of 3 items, and for every item, I will render one of these views. Just like that, we have 3 items there. And if I change here to 5, we're going to have 5 dots. Now, I want to highlight the circle that I want to highlight one of the circles. For that, I will keep track of what is the currently selected. What is the currently selected, how is it called? Page from the header. Let's keep track of it inside a current or let's do header carousel page and set header carousel page. Use state. I'm going to initialize it with 0. Now, based on this page that we highlighted, we need to also highlight that dot in this indicator. For that, we can apply here a conditional style. But we need to know which item is this. To do that, we can take here the item and also the index, right? Yes, the index. Knowing the index, we can check if index is equal to the header carousel page, then I want to render it with black, otherwise with gray. So just like that, the first item is black, and if I change here in the state from 0 to 1, it's going to be the second one, and if 2 is going to be this one, and if 4, none of them is going to be selected. So just like that, we conditionally applied this one. Maybe we can also make the others one a bit smaller, so the width is also going to be conditional. If the current one is 10, otherwise it's 8. And in that case, we need to align them on the same horizontal axis using align items center. And now, yep, they are on the same horizontal line. The problem is that as I scroll through these items, I need to move the page here as well. How do we do that? How do we keep track of where we are currently scrolling, what page we are currently viewing? For that, we can apply to a ScrollView a callback called onScroll. Let's define it as a function called onHeaderCarouselScroll. This is going to be a function, let's define it here, that is going to receive an event, and this event, if we do a console log to event.native event, I think that's how it's called. And if I look into the logs and start scrolling through this item, we will see some information. We will see, for example, content offset, which specify how much did we scroll. So in this case, 746. If I move to the left, 393. If I move to the first page, it's going to be 0. So based on this content offset, we can understand on what page we are currently at. I can do e.native.content offset. And I don't like that I don't have this function typed, because I cannot use like auto suggestion. So I'm gonna check what type is this on scroll, and it's on scroll. The event is native event. How to properly do this? Can I do type of ScrollView dot on scroll? I don't think so. Well, I think I can simply steal this one. Native synthetic event, native scroll event. Let's try by saying that this event is going to be of this type. And let's see if we can import it from React Native. And this one, also from React Native. React Native, we has this event exported, and now I can do dot content. Okay, now I can select properly content offset X. It auto suggests me. So if I look only at the X, we can see that we are from 0 till 393, we are on the first page. From 393 till 786, we are on the second page, and from 786 till the end, we are on the last page. So these numbers are simply a multiplier of the width of the screen. So we can say that the header carousel page, or let's do set header carousel page, or let's do it conditionally, const current page is equal to, I'm going to take this value and I'm going to divide it by the width of the screen, and I will show this value. As we can see, now we are somewhere on 0.0, then 1, then 2. I don't need all the digits after the 0. I need a round number, so I'm gonna do math dot floor this value, and this should say, why is it minus 1? 0, 1. I know, because the content offset, when we scroll below it, it's going to go below 0. What would be a better approach? 1, 0, 0, it's 0. Probably I should do math dot maximum of 0 or this value. So if this value is below 0, it's going to say that the current page is 0. Now, if I scroll, this is 0, this is 1, and this is 2. And I can take this current page and I will check if current page is different than header carousel page. If it's updated, then we will call the setter to update the current page. Now, if I reload and actually start from 0, if I swipe, as you can see, we move from one page to another. I don't really like that going back actually works very well, but going forward is a bit delayed just because, as you can see, when the page is moving, it slows down at the end. So we are only on the other side of the page when we are fully there. So how do I explain it? If we are here, where? If we are here, I would like to consider that the wolf page is visible. But in our implementation, only when we are all the way till the next page, we are moving there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add something here. So if content offset, I'm going to add half of the width, but I don't know where. If content offset plus width divided by 2, if everything here, let's see if I scroll slowly when it moves. Will it move when it passes half a screen? Yes. As you can see, when it passes half a screen, it moves. And I think that's better approach. Yep. That was the solution there. Whew. Nice. So this is our scroll indicator, and I saw there the same, how's it called, warning for the missing key. When we mapped through these dots, we need to provide here a key that we can use from the index. And whenever we have, here we're taking the index and we are using it, but we never use the item. Let's leave it like this. Let me go ahead and do git add git commit -m header carousel indicator. Nice. We can also use paging enabled here. Actually, I think that's true. Paging enabled. But most probably something was not working with paging enabled. What happened to the old notjust.dev background? Did Alex kick you out? No, actually, we moved from that place. That was in Tenerife, on an island in Spain. So we moved from there to Barcelona, but currently we are in Moldova. Alex didn't move. We are actually having a wedding in a week. Very, very close. It's a bit stressful, but I'm very excited for that. And that's why we're in Moldova. That's why we have this temporary background. But the next background is going to be a new one in Barcelona, where I will set up my long-term office. So very exciting times ahead. Hey Francesco, thank you very much for the donation. 50 USDs, thank you. How are you doing? Oh, you made my day. Cheers, mate. Have lunch on me with your new bride. Thank you very much. I'll definitely do that. 3,000. Congratulations on your wedding. Thank you, thank you. It's next week. Okie dokie. So, what do we do next? What do we do next? Okay, the next step, I think, let's start slow. Let's go ahead and, before we get into the animations part, which is going to be the most interesting thing, let's go ahead and add, create another screen where we will display the full image. So when we press on one of these images, we want to navigate to a separate screen for to be able to see the image itself. For that, our application will need another screen and the possibility of going from a screen to a different one. That means we need a navigation system. Currently, we're doing everything in the app.tsx file, but now that we need to move between screens, we will have to use a navigation system. We could go ahead and use React Navigation, but I prefer using Expo Router, which is a file-based navigation system. So let's go ahead and open Expo Router documentation, and specifically under the installation. For the quick start, we are going to go under the manual installation, and we are going to start by copying this install command to install the dependencies of Expo Router. Let me check if git status is clean. Yeah. And I'm going to go ahead and install all the dependencies of Expo Router: React Native Safe Area Context, screens, Expo linking, constants, Expo status bar. The next step, while we are installing the dependencies, is to change the main property to Expo entry inside our package.json. So I'm gonna go in the package.json, and this main from Expo app entry is going to be changed to Expo router entry. This makes our application launch as an Expo router. This is specifying what is the entry point. That means that now our app.tsx is no longer the entry point in our application. The entry point of our application is going to be the app directory, which is specific to Expo router. It should be named app. And there we need the index file. What I'm going to do, I'm going to move the app.tsx to our app directory, and I'm going to then rename it to index. This will make this file the home screen, basically the screen that will be rendered when we open the application or when we navigate to the /URL of our web application, if we also decide to develop for web. Well, before we restart our server, we also need to change the schema in our app.json. So in app.json, below the slug or anywhere here, let's also add the schema or scheme. For example, iOS photos, because Expo router is also handling for us the deep linking, and for deep linking we need this schema. And I will not install DOM. This one is done, and we simply have to restart our server. So back in the terminal where we have our server running, I'm gonna stop it, and I'm gonna run npm start -- then space -- clear. This will restart the Metro bundler and reset the cache. And now if I'm gonna do reload, if everything worked correctly, we should see the same stuff, but it's going to be managed by the Expo router. Unable to resolve data from where? From here, it didn't update the relative path. So in the app index, make sure that the relative paths, for example, to data, this is not going to be in the same directory, it's going to be one directory up, so it needs 2 dots here, and the same for carousel, 2 dots up. Now if I save and reload, as I said, everything is back to normal, but it's managed by Expo router. What does that mean? That means that we can easily create a new screen by simply creating another file in this app directory And the file that I'm gonna create is going to be called photo.tsx. From here, if I'm gonna go ahead and do export default and let's say photo screen, and if I return here, I'll start with a text, hello. I forgot the function keyword. I need to make sure to import text from React Native. Now, if I would navigate to /photos, I will be navigated to a new screen with a text hello. To test that, I can go here and somewhere, maybe before this carousel, I'm going to render here a link that I'm going to import from Expo router as well. Say go to photo. And the link needs an href, similar to how a link on the web works. The href of my photo screen is going to be / followed by the name of the file, /photo. Now we see this link go to photo. If I press it, we're going to be redirected to the hello here. From where I cannot go back, but I can reload, and I'm back here. If we want to properly go back, we need to use one way would be to use a stack navigator. A stack navigator is a very common navigator for mobile applications where the screens that we go to are pushed on top of each other, and it also has a header with a back button which is native to the platform. If we want to use a stack navigator for our application, all we have to do is create a new file here with the name _layout. The name for a _layout is very important because this is the layout of our application. I'm going to explain in a moment what the layout is, but let's go ahead and export a default function root layout. If I return null, we're going to see that we lost everything because the root layout is the shared UI component of multiple screens. It's very easy to understand a layout component with shared UI when you think about a tab navigator. Because in a tab navigator, the tabs, they should always be visible, and when we move from a tab to another, the content of that tab is the one that is changing. So the content is the page, but at the top or at the bottom, the tabs will always remain there. So that's the shared UI elements that can be created using a shared layout file. And the way it works, it first renders the layout, it renders everything here, and in order to render the screen, we need to either use a slot from Expo router, which works very similar to the children property. Basically, we're not doing anything, we are simply taking the screen, either index or photo, and returning it from the layout. This is useful when you need to add, for example, some global context providers, add some logic, and so on. Another thing that we can do is import a stack from Expo router, and instead of rendering the slot, if we render the stack, we're going to see that just like that we have a stack navigator, and if we go to the photo page, we see the header and we can go back, and we also have like a nice animation to go from one page to another. This is our root layout, and I'm gonna close it because we will not need it to work with it a lot. We just needed to specify that the navigator to be used for our application should be a stack here. Let's close it, go back to index, and I want to improve this link because I don't want to have like this link here, this text here. what I want to do is to be able to press on one of these images in the flat list on one of these image. To do that, what we should do is use a link and wrap it around our image. Let's wrap the link here. Let's specify the href should go to the /photo. We lost the styles because now it's not the image with this width, which is the component that the flat list is rendering, but instead it's the link itself. If we want to say, hey link, actually go ahead and pass everything down to the image and use the image as the component, we can do it by passing as child here. If we do that, it works, but it includes another problem. If I press on it, it doesn't work. That's because when we do as child, link component will pass the on press event here to the child component. The problem is that image does not have an on press event. So when we are using as child here, we need to make sure that the child is a component that has a on press event. In React Native, we can use a pressable here like this. So now the styles are again broken, but the pressing works. The styles are broken because for the pressable, I'm going to add the styles, and I'll probably move this with these styles here to the pressable, and on the image, should I just do flex one? Let me try a couple of solutions. Yes. No, don't like that one. With 100% of a parent container and height also 100% of a parent container. Yeah, this one works. So yeah, now our pressable is specifying that the width should be 4th of our size of the screen, but the image is going to be full size of our pressable component. Now when I press on one of these photos, I'm redirected to the screen of that photo. Perfect. Now the question is, okay, now on this page, let's go ahead and instead of a text, let's render an image. The image here will be imported from React Native and it needs a source. For now, I'm going to import all the photos from our data, and I will use the first one there, like a dummy one, for the image itself. I'm gonna navigate to this page and we see it here. We can go ahead and add some style here to say that we want the width to be 100% of the screen. We want the height to be 100% of the screen. And I also want the image not to cover the container, but for us to be able to see the whole image. So for the resize mode, I'm going to use not cover, but contain. And this way, I would like to see the whole image like this. Perfect, that's good. But how do we, if I go back and press on one of these items, I'm always rendering the same 4th photo. How do we know what photo did we press in the first step to be able to render the same photo in the second step? For that, usually on web, that happens by appending here, like for example, an ID, for example, photos/1, where 1 is the ID of that photo. We can do the same with Expo router, but for that, we're gonna have to create, we have two segments, we have two slashes. The first one is photo, the second one is the ID. For the first segment, we're gonna simply have a folder called photo. For the second one, which is an ID and which should be dynamic, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, for that, we're gonna create a file inside the photo folder with the following syntax. Between the square brackets, we're gonna add a variable. Let's call it ID. And then we can do tsx. I'm gonna move all the code from my photo to my ID, and I will actually remove the old photo file because now our page is under photo/ID. I will add another dot here for it to work for a moment. And now we are back navigating to that page. But at this moment, we are able to take the ID using a hook called use local search parameters. So remember, when we press on an item, we are sending here /2. To access it, this is going to be parsed as the ID of a URL, and we can take it using use local search parameters. Having the ID, we can do a console log ID here. If I open it up, we see console log 2. That's because we are hard coding the ID 2 here. Instead of hard coding the ID 2 here, we should take it from the item.id and do it dynamically. For that, I'm gonna put this string between brackets. I'm gonna transform it to a template string with backticks, and instead of 2, I'm gonna use the $ brackets syntax to add here a variable item.id. Now, if I look in the logs and press, for example, on this one, we see that the ID is 13. If I press on this one, ID 11. So we are properly sending the ID of a photo that we clicked on. Now, on the photo page, we can use this ID and find the photo with that ID through all the photos that we have in our array. So photo is equal photos.find a photo with ID equal to ID. Here in the use local search parameters, we can say that the search parameters will contain an ID of type string. And it says that there is a number and a string, so to better test it, the ID that is coming from here, maybe we should do it as number.parse int and ID. Now we are comparing properly a number that is the ID of our photo with a number that is coming from the URL. Now, if we didn't find a photo, if there is no photo, we can return a text saying photo not found. Otherwise, we can use this photo.image to display the image. And just like that, we are searching and displaying the right image based on its ID. Nice. Okay. Leonid, hello, Slava Ukraini. Now what I want to do is, I want to hide actually the headers. To hide the headers, I'm gonna go into the layout and to the stack screen here, I can send some screen options. These screen options are options that are coming from React Navigation. So if you know React Navigation, if you have experience with React Navigation, send any option that you would send to React Navigation screen option and it's going to work. One of them is header shown false. If I do that, the header is hidden. Now I can go back by swiping from left to right, but I can also specify the gesture direction vertical so that I can swipe down to go back. And I can also do what? Animation, the animation of our swap using a fade animation. And now it's going to fade there. And when I drop down, it fades back. There is another one, what? Fade from bottom. I think fade was better. Yep, looks good. So that was our Expo router setup and the details page of one photo. Let's do git add, git commit -m setup Expo router and add the photo screen. Okie dokie. I think now it's time for some animations. Time for some animations. For animations, we're going to use React Native Reanimated. So let's go ahead and go to React Native Reanimated, and under the getting started, let's go ahead and start by installing React Native Reanimated in our application. Under the installation for Expo, I'm going to copy this command. Let's go ahead and install it. npx expo install React Native Reanimated. We need to add Reanimated Babel plugin at the end of the plugins. So let's copy it here under babel.config. We don't have plugins yet, so after presets, I'm gonna add plugins, and I'm gonna add the Reanimated plugin last. The next step is what? That's it. We need to clear the Metro bundler, and Reanimated is going to work. I'm thinking, which animation should I start with? We're gonna have gesture animations, we're gonna have FlatList animations, but first let me try to animate this image. Should I? Will it be easy or not? I'm thinking my goal is to do like an easy animation, but I might get into troubles right now. So the way it works here is when we go to one of these images, as you can see, it slowly zooms out and then it stops. So I'm gonna show you once again, and I'm thinking whether I want to show this animation of zoom out. If I go here, it slowly zooms out. It's a library for animation. Yeah, React Native Reanimated is a library for animations that helps us run performant animations on React Native on the UI thread. So yeah, we're gonna work a lot with it. We're gonna use a lot of its features. And I'm gonna try to explain step by step like what are animations, what are shared values, what are modifiers like with timing, interpolation, and a lot of other stuff. But first, let's try, and we'll see like how hard it is to do this zoom out animation. And before I do like any kind of animations, I'm trying to do this manually, like not animating, but changing some properties and seeing like what I need to change in order to get the desired output. So in order to have like here some zoom out, what would I need to change? What I would need to change probably is the scale of the image. So maybe I'm going to add a transform, which is an array that we can apply different transformations. And one of these transformations is scale. So maybe I should start from scale 1.2 and then slowly move to 1.1, then 1.0. This is going to be zoom out. But if I do 1.2 here, we see that the image spills over the other stuff. So 1.5, it goes beyond the container. To make sure that doesn't happen, I'm going to wrap the image in a view, and my view is going to have the style, the width and the height style. My image is so that the view itself like does not change the height and the width, but the image inside the view can shrink and expand without affecting like other components. And the image will start with a width 100% of a parent and height as well 100% of a parent. And if it still feels that it breaks stuff, but by adding an overflow hidden on this view, we say that anything that inside the component is bigger than the view itself should be hidden, so that when the image is scaled up, the things that overflows beyond this width and height is hidden. If I go here, now I can play with this one and it properly works up until 1.0. I'm wondering if I would have width here and also overflow hidden and without the view itself. Will it still work? Basically overflow of the image. No, it doesn't, because it's the image itself that is scaled up, so it cannot hide the overflow because we are basically scaling the image. So that's why we needed that parent view. So now that we know what property this should be animated, and we know that once we do that, it's going to give us the desired output, we need to do that in a way smoothly, right? We need to do it in an animated way. Just joined, but it's looking nice. If you're just joining, guys, what we are trying to accomplish is the iOS 18 photo application with all the features that we see here that highlights. Even the iOS 18 photos is buggy, so it highlights a header at the top that we can scroll through, and then we can scroll through the page with different sections, and when we are at the top we can scroll down to get into the flat list and scroll through it. So we're trying to build this ourselves. So far we have a basic structure of our application with carousels, with a flat list here, and now we're getting into animations. Sorry. We also have ability to go and view the image, and slowly we're learning about animations and implementing them all the way until we will be able to do everything that we saw there. Will this be on Git later? Yes. And as I was saying, we need to animate this image. So the property that needs to be animated is the scale here. To animate something, we need to smoothly move a value from something to something, from initial state to the end state. For example, we need to move the scale from 1.5 smoothly to 1.4, then smoothly to 1.3, and so on until we get to 0. So this value that will drive our animation, that we need to update smoothly without having to re-render everything on the JavaScript side on our component, this value needs to be a shared value. So let's go ahead and start here with declaring the scale as a use shared value, and the initial scale is going to be 1.5. So a shared value is a value that is defined on the UI thread, and when we update it and using it to style and using it on the UI, it doesn't have to traverse back and forth between the UI thread and the JavaScript thread. It stays on the UI thread, we update it, and we use it to move things around, to animate stuff, and this makes the animations using shared values performant. Now, using this shared value, we can create an animated style. So, animated style will be created using the use animated style, also from React Native Reanimated. This hook will receive a function that should return us some style object that is animated, that moves over time. So I'm gonna do here, okay, give me an object, and the part that was animated in our case is that transform, which is an array of objects, and there we're gonna have a scale, and this is the value that we want to animate. So the scale of our transform is going to be this scaled shared value dot value. A shared value should be accessed with a dot value property. Now, if we take this animated style and apply it to our style property of our image, where is it? Here we have transform. So instead of applying this transform here, which is not animated, if we apply the animated style as the second style object, animated style, it's not gonna work because the component should be able to use animated styles. And for the component to be able to use animated styles, it needs to be animated. We can use animated dot, not image, but animated dot image. And let's see if it will be able to import it from Reanimated. I'm gonna scroll up to show you how it imported, because it imported it not by destructuring, but as the default export method there. So this animated has multiple default animated components, such as animated.image, animated.text, animated.view. And when using an animated image, we can use everything that we used before, like resize mode, source, custom styles, but we can also add here an animated style that we can change over time, and it will update on the UI. Now, if I will reload my application, failed to create a worklet. What is that for? Animated style, animated.image. Let me try to... Did I restart the application after installing Reanimated? I don't know, but I'm gonna do right now. And if I do reload now, and if I go here, nothing happens, but the animated style is applied, because we see that the value here is quite scaled, because if it would be 0.0, it will look a bit different. So we never update this scale value. To update it, but when do we want to update? I think we want to update it when what? When we change the page. So in a use effect, when with a dependency of when changing the page, what we want to do is we want to set the scale value back to 1.5, and then we want the scale value to go slowly towards 1. So for example, go to 1. If I do that, it's going to simply jump towards that value. So instead of jumping to that value, we want to update it over time towards that value. And to do that, we can use the with timing one. And now we are changing the scale over time from 1.5 to 1. Let's see if it will work. We go here. It's very fast. As you can see, it's super fast, but I can also change here the duration to be 5 seconds or 5,000 milliseconds. And just like that, we have a very smooth transition. And it always starts when we change the page. And yeah, this with timing is also imported from Reanimated. So in this step, we learned about some things. We learned a lot of different stuff that all together helps us animate components. First, it was a shared value. A shared value, think about it as a state variable, but the state variable is defined on the JavaScript thread. When updating a state variable, our component re-renders. If we would use a state variable for driving animations, think about how many times the component should re-render just to update the position of an element. That wouldn't be performant, that would be very, very inefficient. That's why a shared value is a value that is defined on the UI thread.
It's on the UI thread because based on it, we're gonna animate stuff on the UI. So it's better to have it there without having to send it back and forth between JavaScript thread and the UI thread. The shared value can be accessed using .value, and it can be updated by simply setting a new value to this scale.value. We don't need a setter, we don't need anything else. It's as simple as our variable.value equal to a new thing. If we simply do a new thing, it's going to jump or it's going to instantly change to that value. But if we want to animate and update it over time, we can use an animator modifier like with timing. And in this case, the value of our scale is going to be changed over time, like slowly moving to the desired value based on the options that we provide here, such as the duration. And we see that it slowly moves there. I think actually it should be from way less zoom, like the zoom shouldn't be so visible. Yeah, I think that's nice. 6 seconds. Now, when we want to use the shared values in styles, we need to use an animated style. We create it using useAnimatedStyle hook. That is a function returning a style object. Here you can apply even static ones, so like width or background color or anything, but you have a possibility to use shared values like this scale.value. Now this animated style we can apply to the style property of a component that has been transformed to an animated component. So instead of image is animated.image. If we would animate a text, it would be animated.text or animated.view. And we apply the animated style together or besides the static style, and this is going to be updated over time. And I think I'm going to do the same for the second component here. So I'm going to simply copy paste it like this, and here say 10. And if I move, this one moves as well. If I move back, it always starts from the initial position. And zooms out until the scale is 1 or the default scale. Okay, so that wasn't actually that bad. It was not that complicated to implement, and hopefully I explained how shared values, animated components, animated styles, and animation modifiers like with timing are working together to create animations. Let me go ahead and do git status, git add, git commit, reanimated, and zoom in animation. Because the next step that I want to show you is when we are on one of these pages, I want to have a possibility to pinch to zoom. So now, in the previous step, we saw how to automatically zoom in, zoom out. In the next step, I want to use gesture-based animations. When I pinch, I want to zoom the photo. So that's going to be another step. We need another library to handle gestures, and we're going to do that just in a second. But before that, give me 1 second. I'm going to be back, and we are continuing with our iOS 18 photo application. So I'm going to be back. All right. Francesco is asking, unrelated to this, have you ever integrated the Redux store with React Native? I know that Redux is fully compatible with React Native and it's popular choice for state. Am I wrong? Yes, I think we have some Redux tutorials on our channel. I don't remember exactly which projects that was, but let me try to see that on YouTube. If we go to notjust.dev, to the live streams, when did we do that? Oh, by the way, the inspiration for this video was from this tweet. I saw someone doing this project in Swift, and I said like, we need to do it in React Native as well. So, I don't know, Redux, let's maybe try Redux. Yeah, it's this one, the Nike clone. Check it out if you're interested. But yeah, I believe that there are better state management libraries for React Native or for React in general. Redux is quite old and has a lot of boilerplate, which can be managed better. Suggestions on compiling React application to Android using QR. What does that mean? What does that using QR mean? So let's move on. And as I said, the next step is I want to implement a gesture-based animation. So in the previous step, we saw how to do zoom in, zoom out, as we see here, zoom out, an automated one. And we did that using a with timing modifier on a shared value that we apply as a scale to the image itself. Here with timing. In the next step, in the layout here, not in the layout, in the photo, let's actually start with the same approach, an automated way, and then I'm gonna slowly introduce the gestures. So you can pause the video for a second and try to do the same timing animation here for the image to zoom in the image on the screen. So, as I said before, first try to find the property that you manually would modify and you'd have a desired output, and later we can animate that property. The property probably is going to be under the transform style of our image, and there we're gonna add a scale, and if I do 1.5, and if I go here and I slowly move to 1.8, that is going to zoom in. So that's exactly what I need. I see that by moving this scale value up, I zoom in, and by moving it back to 1, I bring it back to normal. So I know that I will have to animate this property scale. For that, I'm going to need, let's do it here at the top. I would need a shared value called scale, use shared value. I'll start at 1 at the initial value. Let's use this shared value to create an animated style. Animated style using use animated style hook that will have a function that will return some styles that we can animate. The styles that we will animate is this one, the transform. I can actually copy paste it here, and instead of scale 1, I'm going to use the shared value dot value. Now I can take this animated style and I can add it besides the normal styles here. But for this to work, our component should be animated. So we're gonna do animated dot image. I'm going to import animated from React Native Reanimated so that I have animated, use animated style, and use shared value. These are the structure, this is the default export. And just like that, if I go here, everything works okay. And using a use effect with an empty dependency array to run it when we get on the screen, we can do scale.value. We want to animate it towards the value 2, like we want to zoom in. So using the with timing, I will animate it towards 2. And maybe the duration should also be 500 seconds, 5 seconds or 5,000 milliseconds. Just like that, if I go to one of the screens, it's going to automatically zoom in. If I go to another one, it's going to zoom in. So this is an automated zoom in. So far so good. But what we want to do is we want a gesture-based animation. For that, we will use another library called React Native Gesture Handler, which is also developed by Software Mention, the authors of Reanimated. So Gesture Handler works very well together with Reanimated to create gesture-based animations. So it can detect gestures like pan to drag something, like a tap, like a long press, a rotation, a pinch, and the pinch is the one that we are actually interested for zooming. But we're gonna see that in a second. Let's start by going to installation, scroll down to Expo and run npx expo install React Native Gesture Handler. Like this. Now back here, what we need to do is we need to wrap our whole application inside the gesture handler root view. Where do we do these kind of things? These kind of things are done at the root layout level, because we remember that the root layout is the first file or the first component that is being mounted. So here is where we define our global providers, global components, and things that needs to be wrapped around the whole application. So around the stack, I'm going to wrap the gesture handler root view. And to make sure that it expands on the whole screen, we usually give it a style flex 1. And this will make sure that the gesture handler is on the whole screen. Okay, now we are able to use gesture handlers and manage gestures. We're gonna need that on the photo ID screen to do the zooming based on the gestures, based on the pinch gesture. For that, we need two things. We need to import from gesture handler. I feel that I'm pronouncing the gesture handler very funny, but I don't know like how to pronounce it better, so we're gonna go with it. So we need to import two things, a gesture and a gesture detector. The gesture detector is the component that we render on our screen to be able to detect some gestures. So I'm going to wrap it, the gesture detector, I'm going to wrap it around the image because we need to render it exactly there where we want the gestures to be detected. On this screen, we want to detect it on the whole screen, so that's why I can even put it like the style width and height 100% here as well. And to detect a gesture, we need to define what kind of gesture, what should happen, how can we manage that gesture. So what I'm going to do is, before I return this one here, let's do const gesture equal gesture dot, and here we have different kind of gestures like long press, like panning, like pinch, and so on. The one that I'm interested in is actually pinch, which is a continuous gesture that recognizes pinch gesture. It allows for tracking the distance between two fingers and use that information to scale or zoom your content. So let's define it like this and take this gesture and send it to the detector as gesture. Now, after we say that this is a pinch gesture, we can do dot and here specify some callback functions, such as on begin. We can do console log begin flinch. After the on begin, we can chain other as well. For example, on change, and we can say console log on change. And if I go here and look at the logs, I can try, if I do it with the mouse, it's not going to even begin the flinch. But if I hold, I think control or options, it becomes like two things. We see begin flinch and then on change being called. And the cool thing is that the on change will have here an event, and we can console log the e dot a lot of things like focal x, which is the center x, and focal y, the center y. We also have a property called scale, which is going to show us a value very similar to the zoom property or the scale property. So as we, where is my VS Code? As I hold options and zoom in and out, the scale property also changes. So what we can do with this e.scale, we can simply apply it to, I'm gonna expand this function here. I'm gonna say our scale share value dot value is going to be equal to e.scale. Now, if I start to zoom out, zoom in, as you can see, it follows my pinch direction. Cool, so I'm going to remove this use effect because I don't need this automated one, because we are doing it based on the gesture. I don't need to do anything on the begin because everything happens on the on change. And I don't even need the console log, so it's a very simple on change event. We are taking the event scale that gesture handler is giving us, and we are applying it to the share value that later drives our animated style and provides the feature to zoom in on pinch and zoom out. What we can do, another thing that we can do is when we release the pinch, I want to go back to scale 1. On the pinch gesture, we can chain here another event called on end. And when that happens, I can do scale.value equal to 1. This will kind of work, but it will jump to 1. What we should do in these cases is using either timing or spring animations. Basically a smooth, to move a value towards the desired property with a smooth animator. Now if I'm going to zoom in and release, it's going to go back to the initial phase. Like this, like this, like this. Perfect. So now we have proper flinch to zoom. Where is my VS Code? Here it is. Nice. I just realized something, because it will always zoom on the center of the image. What if we want to zoom on the corner of the image? For example, taking it here. I think I'll have to run it on my phone to check this option. But if I would try to zoom on one of the corners, I don't think it's going to be possible with this approach, because we're simply scaling. If I go here and try to zoom there, yeah, it simply moves to the center. How would we do that? I think we should also use the console log event.focalx and event.focalY. This is the, as I understand, this is the position expressed in points along y-axis of the center anchor point of gesture. Basically the center of our gesture. And if I look here and then zoom on the corner, we see 87, 248. If I zoom on the other side of the corner, that's way more. So this way we know like basically on what side are we zooming in. What should we do with this information? Anyone has any ideas? I can translate, but I don't know how much. I know that I need to translate, but how much? No idea. Well, I'm gonna add this one to my list, and if we have time, I'm gonna think about it. But yeah, we just know that zoom to any point is definitely using this focal Y. Translate X and translate Y, but I don't know like how much, like how do we get this one to a translation, because it also depends on the scale. So it should be like some interpolation, like some yeah, very interesting question. Okay, so that was our pinch to zoom, and for the pinch to zoom I'm quite happy with what we have so far. I'm gonna do git add, git commit gesture animation pinch to zoom. And we can go back to our index, because on the details page I think we are good. We have zooming and we don't need a lot more there for now. Okay. On this part here, when we drag down, the image kinda remains the same at the top, and simply the bottom part moves down, as you can see, and the image zooms in. Let's try to figure out this kind of animation. How would we do this one? So when we go down, we don't want to scroll the image, we want the top to remain at the top, the bottom to go down, and the image to zoom in. On the iOS photos, when you overzoom out, it back to the photo gallery. Oh, let's think if I can do that. I could simply call it we are using shared element transition, so it's a bit more challenging. I tried to implement that, it's not working properly. Maybe we can try it later. What I can simply do is basically when you zoom out and release is to call go back. It's not going to be the same effect as iOS, because on iOS what Rui Jose is saying is on iOS, if I zoom out, come on. If I zoom out, as you can see, I'm going back, but it's basically a shared element transition. Like if I leave it like this, it's going to move back into its place. That's quite challenging. I'm gonna try later to see if we can accomplish it, but at least what I can do is I can call go back when we zoom out. So we can think about it on end. If on end, let's add it as a proper function. Let's check if scale.value is less than 0. E dot if scale dot value is less than 0, I can do router dot back. For that I need the router, so let's do const router equal use router from Expo router. Here it is, use router. So I can take router and say router dot back. And it's going to fail, but I'm gonna show you why. Now if I will, come on. Now if I zoom, pinch out and then release, it doesn't go back, but it's not even, oh, it shouldn't be less than 0, it should be less than 1. It fails, it crashes. Why is that happening? That is happening because we are calling a function that lives on the JavaScript thread, and the function that we're calling is router.back from a worklet. A worklet, in other words, is a simple function that is running on the UI thread. We can define these worklets ourselves, or, for example, gesture, on change and on end, and all of these callback functions. These are worklets. These are functions that are running on the UI thread with the shared values with data on the UI. A use animated style like this function is a worklet. It's automatically transformed to an worklet. So from these functions, we cannot call JavaScript functions out of a box like this. what we should do is we should use a function called run on JS, and this allows us to schedule or to call a function on the JavaScript side from a worklet, for example, from this gesture on end. The way run on JS works is in the following way. We send here the reference to the function, and then run on JS gives us back the reference on the JS, and we need to call it here. So from this approach, we take the first part, we put it between brackets here, and we take the second part and we put it at the end. And if you have to send here some data, you're gonna send it here. In our case, we don't have to send any data, so I'm gonna just do it like this, and I will hope that it works. Now, if I zoom out, it goes back. Another thing that you might, that I might do is, it's not about the scale, because look, if I release it like this, it goes back to my photo. If I do it like this, it goes back to my photo. If I do it like this, it goes there. It's about the velocity, like when we release, what was happening? Are we dropping it there? Come on. When we release the pinch, are we dropping it there, or the other way around? Are we zooming in? So for that, I think we can work with e.console.log, e.velocity to tell us in what direction we are moving right now. I will comment out the other console logs not to get confused. And I'll go to our application, go to a photo. If I zoom in and release, the velocity is 1.04. If I zoom out and release, the velocity is -3. So we should basically, even if we are here and zoom in, if it's positive, it should open back. If it's negative, we should close it. So if it's less than 0, we should go back. Otherwise, we should bring it back. Whew. So now if I go here and zoom out and release, we go back. But even if it's small, but I'm zooming in, it comes to me. Come to me. Come to me. Okay, let me see it on my physical phone. I think it's going to make a bit more sense. Yeah, I can zoom in. Oh, it's not connected. Reload. Yes, it goes back. Perfect. Git add, git commit -m. Go back when zooming out. So hopefully that's exactly what you were interested in. And what I was doing before I started this feature, or what I wanted to do. Oh, I remember. When I drag this one down, I want the effect that we see here. And this effect. And the image to stay as the header of our scroll view and simply zoom in. To be honest, this one is quite challenging. And even when preparing, I didn't manage to do it properly. But let's see, maybe now in the live stream, I can do it.
Oh boy. Can you guys confirm that everything is okay? Oh, I almost lost it. So, I really hope that everything is good there and we can continue. Yes, thank you, Rui. So again, I want, when I drag down, the image to stay at the top and just to zoom in. So what's gonna happen here? Well, first of all, I want the top of the image to stay at the top of a scroll view. How are we gonna do that? First of all, before animating, we need to think about like what properties we're gonna change. So let's go into the index, and one of these images, maybe I'm gonna work with, yeah, let's work with the second one. Just pick an image and work with it. I will render a different image itself. Come on, what's happening here? Networking has been disabled. Okay, now it works better. So if I drag it down, the scroll view that is our page is basically moving down, because if I go into the container and say background color red, we need to figure out what is moving and what not. The actual scroll view container is not moving because we still see red behind. But if we do content container style background color blue, we're gonna see blue here, but we're not gonna see blue at the top. So we know that the content container is moving, but the scroll view itself, the scroll view stays there, and only the container inside that one is moving. If I content container style, if I do here transform and add translate y minus 200, will that have moved? No, it didn't move anything. But if I do 200, it moved down, but it moved a whole container. But minus 200 didn't work, right? Oh no, it worked. So that means that as we scroll down, we need to translate y to the top in order for the top of a container to always be at the same point. Does that make sense? I don't know. But what makes sense is that first we need to keep track of the scroll position. We need to keep track of a scroll position in a shared value. So let's go ahead and start by defining a page scroll
view position. This is going to be a shared value. Use shared value. Initial is going to be 0. Then this one is going to have a on scroll, on page scroll. Merci. And we're going to define it similar to how we did here on header scroll. So let's do const. Maybe I'm going to do it even above just to keep like the hierarchy. Const on page scroll is equal to, let's copy it like from here. And let's remove a content and say that I want to do the shared value that we defined here, page scroll view position. Page scroll view position dot value equal e dot content e dot native event dot content offset dot y. So now we are keeping track of how much we scrolled up or down. We keep it in a shared position, in a shared value. We can use that one to apply animated content container style here to the scroll view. So let's define here the animated style, page scroll view animated style equal use animated style. And here we will apply this transform style. So I'm going to copy it from there, put it here, take the page scroll view animated style and add it to the container style. I will just remove the blue animation, the blue color there, and simply put the animated style. Now we need to make sure that this scroll view is animated.scrollView. Animated.scrollView. Reading from value directly is not possible on the UI runtime. Perhaps you passed an animated style to a non-animated component. Maybe it's from here. No, it's not from here. Use animated style. We passed it here to the content container style. Don't tell me that I cannot pass it to the content container style and I can only pass it to the style. Yeah, I think that's true. But maybe that's enough. Maybe I can actually do it on there. Let's try by adding here the page scroll view animation. Not exactly what I want, but in a second we're gonna figure it out. So translate y is not gonna be a static value, it's going to be equal to the amount of how much we scrolled. So we can use the main or page scroll view position dot value. Now if I go here and start scrolling down, we're gonna see that the top of the page remains in the same place. No, I don't like it. I don't like this approach. Because it kind of jumps. Okay, let me try another approach. But again, let me comment out this transform. It's going to apply like this. But how, where, what? Any ideas? Animated style. The image has this animated style. Height. If I'm gonna increase the height to 150%, not gonna do much. If here I'm gonna do 150, again, it's not what I need. That's because the parent, I was testing it on the other one, 150, no. 150, no. 200, no. That's because on the container or on this scroll view we have height 2 plus 200, so it increases in size, but anyway it's going to have that space above. But if both it increases in size and somehow we translate this image, translate y minus 200, scroll to overflow, enable prop to false and increase the image height as you scroll. I think that's genius. But in that case it's not gonna scroll down. This scroll view, if I do scroll to overflow false, in that case it's not gonna scroll. What? let me move back to a normal scroll view. Come on, come on, come on. I don't need the animated styles. So if I go here, bounces. But anyway, like why can, oh, they're both of them. Yeah, I think we can do that. It's not gonna be the same. Like I know that this iOS is working based on the overflow scroll, because look at the scroll indicator. When it gets to the top and I move, it actually moves. So it's the overflow scroll. But I'm blanking a little bit on how to properly leave the top of a view there, or maybe somehow position the image absolute or something like that. Your approach with this is good, but the on-page scroll is not going to be called, right? Console log. I'm not gonna know like the offset. Yeah, only when it's positive. So above 0 is not going. What's happening there? What did I change here? Okay, here I did plus 200, and then for the image, for the second one here, I did something with height, with that's fun. Why is this image larger? I don't understand. What did I do there? There is no overflow somewhere here. With height, with height. Oh, this one was applied. So I was trying, what I was trying, minus 200, right? 0. And as I move, I would increase the height and translate minus 20. But it still doesn't show there. Anyway, as I told you, like I was struggling with these animations even before the stream, so I'm gonna leave it for a bit. I'm going to bring back some of the stuff that I did, because I have another very important thing to show you before we focus on this kind of stuff. So the page scroll, we're gonna need to know that. We're gonna need that in a second. Console log, I'm gonna delete it. In the page scroll animation, I don't need this one because we are not using it. Scroll view style on scroll, that's good. I don't need these two overflows. Plus 200, I will remove that one and bring it back. And transform, I don't need this transform. I'll again bring it back. Width, height, overflow hidden. This one can be changed, it's okay. Here. And I can revert this one. Okay, so now I will go ahead and do git status, git commit -m, track page scroll position. Whew. Before maybe like I don't think we're gonna actually have time in the end, but I'm interested how would you implement that feature where we have a header at the top and it zooms in but the top remains there. What I want to focus on right now, which is quite challenging, but I have a solution, is going to be the main page when we have a scroll view at the top. I'm going to show you in the Photos application how that works. We can scroll the page as we normally would, but when we are at the top of a page and then we scroll down, we are actually getting into another flat list that we can scroll here. So technically, here we have 3 states. This is the state where we are scrolling the main page scroll view. Here we have a state where we are scrolling the flat list. Let me show you in code as well. This is the page scroll view. This is the page scroll view. And this is a flat list with photos. In this mode, we are scrolling the photos. But between these two modes, there is a mode of going from one to another. And this is not handled by a scroll view, this is not handled by a flat list, this is handled by the gestures, by gesture handler. How do I know that? I deducted that based on looking at the scroll indicator. In this mode, we see the scroll indicator on the right, and we can go all the way till the top. If we start moving down, the scroll indicator is not there. When we reach this part, the scroll indicator gets at the bottom because our flat list is inverted, and we can scroll up. Again, if I go back down and start scrolling, the scroll indicator is not there. Another way I understood that is if I scroll just a little bit down and then I scroll up, we see that I'm not getting into the another mode. I'm simply doing the, how's it called? The scroll to overflow. If I go down and then scroll down, I'm not going into the flat list mode. I'm going in the flat list mode only when I am at the top of a list and I start moving down. The same here in the flat list. If I start scrolling up while I'm not at the end of a list, like here, and I start moving up, the flat list simply overflows, overscrolls, and goes back. But if I start the same gesture when the flat list is at the bottom and I go up, it moves to another view. So that is going to be what we're going to try to accomplish.
And give me a second to get some water. I'm actually here. I have a water here, and let's figure things out. We have to enable and disable scroll views and FlatList and gesture handler based on the mode that we are currently in. For example, first of all, we will need a shared value that will tell us what scroll mode we are currently in. So let's do const scroll mode is equal to a shared value because it will define animations and so on. Use shared value. And let's give it a type because we want only 3 states here. It's going to be page when we want to scroll the page here, like this is the page scroll view or the main scroll view. We will have the transitional, which will be the scroll based on the gesture. Let's call it gesture. And we have the FlatList. FlatList. So here we are in the page scroll view. When we move between one to another, we are in gesture because we are going to do that using gesture handler. And when we are here, this is going to be a FlatList scroll mode. Flat, let's do underscore list. And we need to initialize it with page. Scroll mode page. Let's go here. And based on this scroll mode, we can go ahead here and say that, hey, this scroll view should only be enabled in a scroll enabled when the how's it called? The scroll mode dot value is equal to page. Only when we are in page, we need to enable it. The thing is that scroll enable what? Scroll enabled. Why don't you like it? When false. Huh? What? Does not exist. Scroll enabled. Yes, sorry. I just forgot. Yeah, that one. So now if we are in page, we can move like this, but if we're gonna move from page to something else, it's not gonna be enabled. But I have to show you that at the moment it seems to work, but if we're gonna change the value, it's not gonna get updated because this is a shared value. It's not a state value. So by changing it, we are not going to re-render the scroll view and this is not going to get re-enabled. Let me think how to show that one. So if we go from page to gesture, when is that going to happen? From page to gesture, we have here on page scroll. We're gonna go there when we over scroll, when we scroll up, right? We're gonna go from page to gesture. So in this on page scroll that handles the scroll of the whole page, let's go there and do some checks. Let's do if e.nativeEvent
content offset dot y is less than 0, which means that we're over scrolling, let's go ahead and do scroll mode dot value is equal to, if we over scroll, we are going to get into the next phase, which is the gesture. If we go up, we need to go into the gesture. For debugging purposes, I'm gonna add a use animated effect, which is similar to use effect, but it reacts to changes in shared values. So let's do use animated reaction. Use animated reaction, which works in the following way. In the first function, we should return the value of a shared value that we want to watch, like this. And in the second one, we're gonna have the current value and the previous value. And what we can do with this information is we can check if current is different than the previous. That means that the value of scroll mode changed. Maybe like this is going to be more clear. So if this changed, let's do console log. This is for logging only. Scroll mode. Let's do current. Now if I check here and reload the application, we see scroll mode page. But if I overshoot, we go into the scroll mode gesture, but I still can scroll the page. And the thing is that scroll enabled, this thing didn't work. As I was saying, because we are using a shared value that is updating on the UI, but here in the scroll view, we are working on the JavaScript thread. So it only accesses the value initially, but it doesn't listen to updates. In order to make this one listen to updates, we are going to change this one to an animated.scrollView. And even then, I think it's not gonna work because we changed to gesture, but we still can do it. Because to be able to send here values, we need to send actually a shared value like this. To react to changes to a shared value, we cannot do .value here. We should actually send the shared value, and only then it's going to work. But the problem is that, as you saw, we need to do some logic here if it's page. Well, what we can do is we can create a derived shared value that is going to be based on the scroll mode, but will return true or false. So under the scroll mode, I'm gonna create the page scroll enabled as a derived value that we're gonna calculate by using the scroll mode value and checking if it's page, then we're gonna return true. Now this page scroll enabled is also a shared value, but it's not an individual one, it's derived. So every time we're gonna update scroll mode, it's going to also update this one. So I can use this one directly here as a shared value. And now if I look here, we are in scroll mode page, I can scroll, but if I over scroll, now my page scroll is disabled, so I cannot scroll anymore. Perfect, that's exactly what I wanted. Now, the next step. We are disabling it. How should I do it step by step, not to confuse everyone? Maybe. Oh, anyway, it's good. I will improve a little bit something now before I forget. Here in the on-page scroll, every time the content offset is less than 0, I'm going to update this scroll mode value. I'm not sure if that's a problem, but I think it would be better to update it only if the current value is not already gesture. So to update it only once, because if it's already gesture, I don't need to change it. So again, I don't know exactly if it's going to change and improve anything on the performance side, but I believe it should. Okay. Now it's time for the next mode. From the page that is a simple scroll view, if we overscroll, we get into the gesture animation. Here, I'm going to show you what that looks like. If we're at the top and I start dragging, the flat list or the header of our page moves down, and if I move up, it moves up. So we need a gesture detector on the whole page here. Let's start by wrapping our scroll view in a gesture detector. Gesture detector, I'm going to close this component at the end here. And let's go ahead and create the gesture, const gesture equal gesture from React Native gesture handler dot, and the type of a gesture is going to be pan, because pan is the one that we are basically drag and dropping. It's with one finger, we move it along the screen. Let's do it like this and send it to our gesture detector equal gesture. Okie dokie. This gesture has on begin, on touch move, on end, on finalize, on update, which runs at every update when we move the finger, but it also has this on change, which is very similar to update, but it contains the amount of change that happened during our drag during the last frame, or from the last time we called the on change. So this callback is going to have an event, and we can console log e dot translation x, right? Or change x and change y. We need change y because we are working with the y, with the vertical axis. So let me do it like this as a proper function. And let's go ahead and see what's happening here. If I go to our application and do like this, we see that it has a very small value. It's always small, but it's the amount of change that happened during the last part. So what we can do with this one change is we're going to keep track of using a shared value, something like this page scroll view position that keeps track of the page scroll view. Let's keep track of the gesture scroll position. Use shared value. Let's start with 0. And in the gesture, I'm going to always add the change. So gesture scroll position is equal to e.change y. Here I need dot value. Now based on this thing, I am going to increase or decrease the height of a header. And our header is this one, is the scroll view. So instead of, for example, height like this, it's going to increase in size until it's full screen, depending on the gesture, right? So for that reason, I'm going to transform this one to an animated.scrollView. And I'm gonna create here the header style. Do we have some styles? No. Let's do it before the return. Let's do const header style equal, it's going to be an animated style. And we want to increase the height based on the gesture animation, right? So it's going to be simply the height is going to be exactly the amount of gesture scroll position dot value. So the more we scroll, the more the height is going to be. And I will take this one, and instead of maybe it's not going to be exactly the same, but we're going to figure it out somehow. So let's do here header height. Now it's completely invisible, but if I will start with gesture, I think I don't want to mess with the scroll view as the header, and instead I'm gonna go back here to height, and I will even remove this animated from here, and I will put an animated.view, basically a small container around our header carousel, and the container is going to be the one. Let me just find the closing scroll view. And this view is going to be the one that will handle the height. For example, if I do here style and the header style, now if I what's happening? Yeah, I know what's happening. I think I know what's happening. Or maybe I don't. Let me check. I can go down, it's okay. But it's page. If I move to gesture. Oh, I know. Here, I don't need to set it to the change y, but I need to add the change y to the existing value. Okay, as you can see, I can drag and drop, I can drag it up, and we apply the amount of dragging we do to the height of our header. So the header becomes larger and larger. And you know what? I'm going to do header style. It's the scroll position. Let's do plus half of a height, because initially I want it to be half of a height. Does it make sense? Initially the scroll position is 0, but we add half of a height. And here or should we not add it here but include it in the gesture scroll position? I think it's going to make more sense if we include it there. It's included there, but we will keep track of it like this. I don't know which one is going to be easier for us, but both are going to work. So now I can move back and forth depending on the gesture. Next, what I want to do is when I end the gesture, I want either to expand it fully or to get back to this mode where it's half-half. So in the gesture pane, on end is going to be called when we end this gesture, and we need to decide, do we need to expand it or do we need to go back to half screen? So we're gonna do the following thing. The gesture scroll position value is going to be, let's expand it first. It's going to be equal to height of a screen. So if I end it here, it's going to expand there. But instead of doing it instantly, let's do it with timing so that it goes smoothly. Now if I reload and start the gesture, release it, it's going to expand it. But it's always going to be expanded. But if I check here whether the velocity y is more than 0, that means that we are scrolling down. We released it scrolling down. So we need to go to the height. But if we released it by scrolling up, we need to go back to height divided by 2. So now if I scroll down and release it, it's going to expand. But if I scroll up and release it, it's going to go back to half of a screen. Whew, okay, now we have it like this. The question is, okay, look, we start with scroll mode page. Oh, what's happening? See, we start with scroll mode page. We can scroll the page normally. When we get to the top, we get into the scroll mode gesture so that we can do the following. But we never go back to the scroll mode page. When do we need to go back to the scroll mode page? We need to do that. We need to do that. when we start scrolling up in the gesture mode, like right now we are in the gesture mode, and if I start scrolling up, I need to go back into the page mode because I'm supposed to scroll the page already. So probably I can do that with a use animation reaction. Or maybe even here, like in the gesture on change, if the scroll position is less than half of the screen, is less than height divided by 2, that means that we are over scrolling the gesture, so I need to go back to scroll mode dot value is equal to page. But again, I will check if it's not already page. If it's different than page. So if it's different than page and we are scrolling back, let's see. Now we are in page. If I go back to the top, we are in gesture. We can go down, we can come back. And if I start scrolling, we get into the page and later we can scroll through the page. At the top we get into the gesture and so on. It's not yet very smooth. It needs like to go there, release, and then it's in the page. Similar to the down, like, but we're getting there. It basically needs 2 gestures, one to switch the mode and another one to actually scroll the page or the gestures. The next step is going to be what I want to do is when I'm in expanded mode for the gesture, I want to move into the FlatList mode. So moving into the FlatList mode, is going to also happen here in the gesture on change, because on the other hand, I'm gonna have quite a similar if statement, but I'm not gonna check if it's less than height. I'm gonna check if it's actually equal to height, which means that it's expanded. I'm going to delete this divided by 2. In that case, I'm gonna move to FlatList mode. But I'm gonna check if it's not already in FlatList mode. So let's see that here. If I go here, we are in page. At the top, we are in gesture. If I go here, we're supposed to be in FlatList mode. Well, the thing is that when this happens, it does not mean that it happens in the on change. It means that it might happen from the with timing when we send it there. So it's not happening based on the gesture, it's happening based on the timing. So that's why this thing, and probably even this thing, should not happen here, but should happen in a animated reaction. So let's do a use animated reaction where we're gonna react to the gesture scroll position here dot value, and we're gonna get current and previous, and we can do our logic here. These 2 steps we can do there. So instead of value, we're gonna work with current. If current is less than height divided by 2, maybe we can put them in the same line. Again here, current. And before we do that, let's check if, let's stop this execution if current is equal to previous, which means that nothing changed. Let's simply do return. Okay, let's see what's happening now. We are in page, at the top we are in gesture, at the bottom we are in FlatList. If I scroll up, I don't get into the page because we're still in gesture. If I try to scroll, we get into the page. Perfecto, perfecto. Now that we have this FlatList mode, let's go ahead and create a derived value that will enable the FlatList scrolling as well. It's going to be very similar to this one, but it's not. It's going to be FlatList scroll enable. FlatList scroll enabled is going to be equal if the scroll mode is FlatList. Now let's take this FlatList scroll enable. Let's go to our FlatList and transform it to an animated.flatlist. And here, instead of scroll enable false, let's send here FlatList scroll enabled. Now, if I move down, I can start scrolling through the FlatList, as you can see. But from the FlatList, I never go back to the gesture. When should I come back to the gesture? To the gesture mode. That is going to be the scroll handler. In the FlatList scroll handler. So the similar way how we move to a gesture from the page scroll that we assign to the whole page scroll, we need to do the same. We need to track the scroll of our FlatList, and when it gets to 0, we need to move to gesture. So we're gonna have a similar scroll event here, but this time is going to be on FlatList scroll. We're not gonna assign it probably to anything, the value, but we're gonna check if native event content offset is less than 0 and scroll mode is FlatList. Then we're gonna do a scroll mode value is gesture, and yeah, then we take this on FlatList scroll view and give it to the animated FlatList on scroll on FlatList scroll view. Now if I do a reload, we are in page. We get into the gesture, then we get into the FlatList. I can scroll the FlatList, and if I scroll back to 0, nothing happens. Why? Because we are gonna go here and do a console log e dot. We're gonna console log this value. What's happening? Oh, I did, it's different, but it should be, it's equal to FlatList. So if I do that, it goes into gesture, and I can go back to my page scroll.
Nice. Okay, dokie. So we have proper, like not super perfect, but we have a transition between the three modes. If I will delete this console log, and then if we check here, we start from the page scroll, then at the top we get into the gesture that we can move up and down. If we expand it all the way up, we get into the flat list mode. Here we can scroll through the flat list. If we scroll back down, we get into the gesture, we can scroll up, from where if we start scrolling we get into the page, and now we can scroll the page. Whew, that was tough, but that is the steps that we have to do. Some things that we are going to try to improve together. First of all, here is if I overshoot here, as you can see, the flat list gets blocked at overscroll, because the bottom of the flat list is here. It should be the bottom of the screen. But if I overshoot, where is it? If I overshoot, oh come on. If I go down, and then if I overshoot, it gets blocked here. But that's because we change the scroll mode to gesture here, and we disable the scrolling of a flat list completely, so it doesn't come back. What we need to do is do a scroll to that is imported from Reanimated, and here we need to send a reference to the ScrollView. So for that we need a reference, an animated reference. At the top, maybe even here, let's add flat list reference. Let's use animated ref. And the type of it is going to be animated.flatlist, and initially it's going to be nothing. But the flat list needs to know what values do we have there. I don't know, we can give it any. So now this flat list reference, we need to assign it to our animated flat list with photos. So reference equal flat list ref. And now we can use this flat list ref inside this scroll to that is coming from Reanimated, send it here, and then send the X value. For example, we want to scroll to 0, and then we want this scrolling to be animated, so I'm gonna send true here at the end. Now, if I reload, scroll down, and then overshoot, it doesn't work. Because I need to probably reload. If I go down, and if I overshoot, I'm expected to scroll back. I know why that might be the problem. Because this is a normal function, and from a normal function we are trying to call a function on the UI thread, and it doesn't work. So instead of normal function, I'm going to move here from this one to a use animated scroll handler, which doesn't need the type, which simply will have E as event. At the end it needs a closing bracket, and it doesn't need the native event because it has content offset right away. Just like that, just by using use animated scroll handler,
I believe it's going to work. If I overshoot, it goes back to 0, as you saw. If I overshoot, it stops there and then scrolls to 0 so that we are in this mode. And from here, we can again scroll or we can go back. Same should happen with the root view. Where is it? Here, if I'm in page scroll and I overshoot, it gets stuck halfway there. So let's go ahead in the on-page scroll. Let's create a reference to the scroll view as well. Page scroll view ref is going to be an animated scroll view. We take this reference, we assign it to the page scroll view so that we can later animate it. Scroll view, let's do ref equal page scroll view ref. Now in the on scroll event, on page scroll, let's find that function. On page scroll, we're going to transform it to a use animated scroll handler. We don't need the type of the event. We need to add here a bracket, a round bracket, and here a closing. And we don't need the native. We're going to access content of set right away. And we're going to do the same scroll to inside here, but we're going to change here to the page scroll view ref. And now if I overshoot, it goes back. If I overshoot, it kind of jumps 2 times. I don't know why. Bit weird, but it kind of works. Okay, so that's what we have at the moment. We still have a bit of time. What I wanted to do here is I wanted to add some continuous scrolling. Because at the moment, for example, if I scroll the page and go to the top, we get into the gesture. Now, if I start scrolling down, I'm scrolling the gesture, it moves to page, and if I release, it goes back because previously we were in gesture, but meanwhile we moved to page and only now I can move here. So it kind of works. We need to 2 times. 1 time to scroll up to change the state and another one to move up to scroll the scroll view. I don't know exactly how I fixed that one, but I think I had a trick. And the trick was, instead of using this gesture directly, I put it together with a native gesture. I don't know exactly how this works, and let's actually even try to see if it works. So let's create a native gesture using gesture.native, and then let's create a composed gesture and specify that they can be simultaneous. So simultaneous, the gesture that we have defined there, and then the native gesture. Now I will take this composed gesture and give it to the detector, and I think it's supposed to share the gesture between the scroll view and the detector, but I don't know. Let's see. Our problem was when from gesture mode, like for example from here, We are in gesture. If I start scrolling, we get into the page and it still doesn't work. We get into page. Another thing that I have, this one didn't work, but maybe it worked in combination. Give me just 1 second. Maybe you know what? Let me comment out this part and just give here the gesture. And I will do a git add git commit -m free scroll modes scroll view, gesture, and FlatList. So this one is working, like at least it's working. It's not perfect, and we're gonna try to see if we can do anything about it, but we don't have a lot of time. So let me try to remember what I did. I think I was considering, where is it? Something with enable. ScrollView enable. I was page ScrollView enable. I was keeping it enabled. Yes, when the scroll mode is page, that's true. But also, I was keeping it when the scroll mode was gesture, and at the same time, if it's gesture and if we are at the midpoint where we don't know is it a gesture or is it page, in that case I was keeping the scroll view enabled. And for that I was doing what? The page scroll view position. No. Gesture scroll view position dot value. If it's equal, maybe if it's equal to height divided by 2. When that is happening, even if scroll mode is gesture but we are at the midpoint, I want to keep that enabled. So let's see if anything is going to change. Now we are in page. I can go down, I can go up, we get into the gesture, but I want to go back into the page, and it works. But we did not change the mode. Why did not change the mode? It did not change the mode because when do we change it to page? Equal to page. We change it use animated reaction. This is from gesture scroll position if it's less than height. If it's less than height, less than height. I think we can also set it when we scroll the page. Where is the scroll handler of the page? On page scroll. We move it to gesture, but we also need to move it to, if the content offset is more than 0, we need to move it to page, and we need to check if it's not already page. And I don't need to scroll it to top, because that is going to allow us to We scroll the page, we go into the gesture, and from gesture we right away want to scroll the page. And it moves actually to page. We are here, we scroll up is gesture, we move down. It still does the page. It still does the page, but maybe the solution is this compose gesture. Let's try it. If I do compose gesture here, reload, I go to page, I go to gesture. Oh, it worked. What? I go to page, and I go to, where was page? So yeah, I'm not sure if I did it better or worse. But this gesture should only happen when we are in gesture mode. So if scroll mode dot value is equal to gesture, only then apply this kind of stuff. Right? Because if we are in page, it's happening there. If we're here, when I go in page there, who moves you in page? This one? If current use animated reaction gesture. Yeah, I think I'll just not commit this one because I probably did it. Have some issues where I'm going to fix it and push the fixed changes. But anyway, this is the result of our tutorial. This is everything that I prepared for you. The iOS 18 photo application. We can scroll, we can view photos, we can pinch to zoom, we can animate, we can go back, we have carousels, we have animations, we have this crazy animation between 3 different modes like FlatList, gesture, ScrollView. This is something that is quite new for me as well. I spent a lot of time trying to build it. I still have a bug right now, but I'm gonna fix it in a moment and push the changes to GitHub. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. If you did, make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and let me know in the comments down below what other projects would you like to see me build, and I'll definitely try to implement them in future. I think it's time to finish this stream. Juan is saying, thank you for Instagram clone application with Cloudinary. I got selected after showing that project, which took me 2 days to complete because of Cloudinary was so buggy. Once again, thank you. Yeah, hopefully you managed to implement it properly and you got selected. Congratulations. All right, guys. So thank you very much. Have a nice day, and I'll see you soon. I'm gonna see you soon. Bye bye.